What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another video. In today's video, we have some Lions news. The Lions have recently been awarded a defensive lineman off of waivers that could add some help in a position where we are dealing with a few injuries. English. Let's get it started.
We're going to bite a kneecap off, and we're going to stand up, and then it's going to take 2 more shots to knock us down. And on the way up, we're going to take your other kneecap, and we're going to get up, and then it's going to take 3 shots to get us down. And when we do, we're going to take another hunk out of you. Before long, we're going to be the last one standing.
Yeah! He's the GOAT! There's nobody! Welcome everybody to the video. Glad you guys are here. And we got some Detroit Lions news. Plus, I'm thinking about throwing some Herman Moore clips into this video because I'm assuming this video is going to be a little bit shorter. So we may do that. All right, and I'll throw the topics up on the screen. But anyways, we have some Lions news. The Lions have been awarded defensive lineman. Clearly, my handwriting needs work. Eric Banks. I wrote down Aaron Banks. Come on, man. Aaron, it's not spelled like that, is it? Do people spell it? Maybe they do. Eric Banks from UTSA off of waivers, who has 2 days ago been released from the LA Chargers. This is a 2020 UDFA out of UTSA that was picked up by the LA Rams. He did not make their 53-man roster in 2020, but he did stick around on that practice squad. So there is some familiarity there. He didn't really see snaps with the LA Rams. However, in 2021, he was brought in by the LA Chargers. And for the first 3 games of that season for the Chargers, he did play this year, the first 3 games. He didn't play a ton, but he did play a little bit. It was kind of hard to get great film from it. I got a few snaps. I looked at it a little bit, and really, the way that I've seen him utilized over his entire career with UTSA and then in the NFL shows me so much versatility within this guy's game. Now, you may ask, why add depth to this position? The Lions have been dealing with a few injuries at this spot. The guy can play outside linebacker and on the defensive line. Outside linebacker in our base packages with the 3-4 outside linebacker. Kind of how we moved Trey Flowers to the outside and Romeo. He can kind of play like that. He's shown us all the ability that we've needed to see to know that he can do things like that. And again, he's familiar with a guy like Brad Holmes and some of the players that are here now. That connection, like him and Michael Brockers, will probably know each other. So there is that. But when you look at some of the injuries we've had, Trey Flowers, as we said in the injury report today, is listed as out for the 2nd straight week with no practice. Now, Dan Campbell did say that he's better this week, but I don't know what that means. Does that mean he's going to come back next week? I have no idea. Jayshon Cornell coming back from suspension. I'm not sure how far along, though, Jayshon Cornell is with that process. Kevin Strong recently being placed on injury reserve last Saturday. So there's some things the Lions are dealing with. Plus, you have Romeo, you have a Brockers that are still listed as questionable for this game. I anticipate they'll play. They were limited all week, just like the last couple of weeks. However, they're still listed as questionable to play. So there's a few bumps and bruises the Lions have been dealing with on that defensive line. This does fill out the Lions 53-man roster because after the cutting of Jamie Collins, the Lions getting Jayshon Cornell back kind of fits that spot. A guy like Kevin Strong hit injury reserve, opens up another spot, which is now where basically this defensive lineman Aaron Banks will fill out. Now, we saw a little bit. The Chargers liked him enough because Brandon Staley was with the LA Rams to bring him in 2021 to give him an opportunity this season. Played a little bit. We didn't see a ton out of him in the 3 games that he did play. Statistically put up 1 tackle in that time. But man, you see a lot of versatility within this game. So I went back to look at that UTSA college film back in 2019 when this dude was a senior. I looked at a game where they played Texas A&M because, of course, that's a big school, SEC school. I want to see that. How does he fare against those dudes? And just the versatility that he's shown is pretty impressive. This is a player back in high school, a 2-star recruit, played quarterback. He played quarterback, but he also played basketball, and he was freakishly athletic. The guy came out of high school at 6'5", 215 pounds. That's a big dude. Coaches looked at him and said, hey, your best shot's going to be playing on the defensive line. So they started him at defensive tackle to kind of rough him up a little bit is what they said. He put on a lot of weight. He went from 215 to 271 coming out of college. So they moved him to that defensive end position. But he just showed off that versatility throughout school. I noticed that in sub packages, when the Chargers did put him on the field, they like to put him at a 3-tech, a 2-tech, things like that in the interior of that defensive line to get some reps against guards. He's also got a lot of good length as well. There's a lot to like within his game. He just seems to be very raw. I didn't notice many pass rush moves watching his film going back to UTSA. I didn't see much there. There also wasn't a ton of snaps in the NFL to really judge off of, but he's pretty long. He's got a lot of strength, and he's a very good athlete for his size. He shows tremendous knee bend. I know you usually talk about that with offensive linemen, but as a defensive lineman, to work around the defensive line, to work stunts, to play at different positions, to drop into coverage. All right, there's a lot to like there. He can get very low at the point of attack. He's pretty darn slippery. He just seems like a very, very raw player that just needs a lot of things cleaned up. But at the same time, there's also a lot to like in terms of attributes. 4-year player at UTSA, 8.5 tackles for loss and 1.5 sack that season was pretty darn impressive. And also his career high in total tackles in a season. This isn't a player that was out there every single snap, but again, he was versatile. He was a piece that they could line up as an outside linebacker, could drop him into coverage. Now, at UTSA, he played like a 4-3 defensive end, but in our defense, I mean, we kind of just move guys around and put him in spots that we feel like they're going to be best. Now we're going to see him on this team. Now, I doubt that he plays this weekend because he hasn't been here that long. There's no guarantee that he plays with this team at all because we do have a lot of depth at the defensive line, especially when you count a guy like Cornell coming back. I'm curious to see how the Lions would use him, throughout practice. At 270, he's shown enough athleticism where he's got a build similar to a Trey and a Romeo where he probably could play some outside linebacker on those base sets. I look at this outside linebacker position without Trey Flowers, who I felt like was one of our better run defenders at that spot. McCoy didn't even leave the field last week. But as more of a bigger run defender at outside linebacker on his early downs, maybe that's how he could possibly find his role, his little niche within this Lions defense. I'm not saying he will, but maybe. Hopefully this means that Romeo Okoro is okay. I'm hoping there's nothing going on there. But they may use him like that and then push him in on sub packages like other teams have done and try to get him some work against guards where you can use some of that athleticism and just pure bull rush.
If you watch the right guard on this play, he may not be trusting his anchor that much because it looks like he gets his shoulders a little bit over his toes here, which is, from what I know for offensive linemen, usually we don't trust that anchor, and it can lead to things like this where you can get bull rush back into the quarterback. But look at the long arm with the right arm and collapsing this pocket. It's an SEC school. I love it.
Does have the athleticism to work through stunts. So I think he does check a lot of the boxes on what you want when you're trying to create a player. Now it's about just kind of putting it all together. Most of his attention coming out of the draft came as a pass rusher. He does have some quick hands, and man, I'm just saying a big dude like that, to find an athlete like that isn't always that easy. So I'm not exactly sure how we're going to try to utilize him. I'm not sure if he'll find a role here or not, but I know there's a good foundation to build on top of. That is who the Lions were awarded today. They got some defensive lineman help. We'll see if, he serves an impact on this roster going forward, but at least for now, it is a player that can help us a little bit for depth purposes. Now, since this video is much shorter, there's a good chance that I'm going to throw in some Herman Moore clips here. So we did a live stream with Herman Moore, and I cut out the 55 minutes we were live with Herman Moore. Again, shout out to Herman Moore, man. We appreciate it. You made the show super awesome. And I might throw in some clips from that Herman Moore show. So I may throw them in here. So I don't know how long this video is going to be. I think that's everything. So I'm going to do the outro now. And if it just ends on a clip, well, this is your outro. Hello. Oh, we're going to be live tomorrow for the Michigan game. I know, we're still here. We're going to be live for the Michigan game tomorrow. Michigan, Wisconsin. That game's going to be hype. Sunday, we can be live for the Lions game for the first time this season. That'll be hype. DoseOfDion Gaming. We got to get back on DoseOfDion Gaming. Maybe tomorrow? Maybe tomorrow night? I'm not doing anything tomorrow night. If I'm not doing anything tonight, I might come back late tonight. Okay, I got to end this here. Thank you, bro, for watching. And I'm out.
Why do you think the Lions have not been able to find consistently year by year success? They can have a playoff year and then a down year. My answer is usually because, well, I think for the front, we change a lot of things at the top, coaching, GM, and it always changes, so it's tough. What do you think about that?
I think it's been a couple things. One, there hasn't been the right mixture of talent, and I think they were getting there. When you look at the defensive unit, when Ndamukong Suh and those guys were here, I felt that they started putting together a beast of a defensive unit. They were fast. They were ranked very high in the NFL, top 10, and they were respected. Then you had the offensive unit. They were missing some pieces. They need to get the offense. And it always seems like we pull the plug just a little bit early. And sometimes it's whether we got the wrong coaches, but we got the right players. We got the wrong players, but we got the right coaches. Or we got a mixture where we don't have either one right. And you got to lead that sometimes back to the top and say the organization itself has to be very heavy on understanding the parameters and the anatomy of a professional football team in terms of winning championships. So you got to bring the right people in with the right mindset. You got to have the right internal workings as a business. It's no different, man. The NFL and the Detroit Lions is a business. So you got to look at management. A lot of people think it's just the players. But, the players are the players. You got to just get the right ones. You got to get the right coaches. And if you can do that, you can make it happen. But without it, it's just tough. And here, I think this is about as close as I've seen a mixture of having the right coaches who understand the game, understand how to get the most out of their players. And now the talent has to catch up. The talent has to be developed around it. And I said this early on a show that I was on. If you look at the fact that they've been this competitive against Green Bay, San Francisco, and also now with Baltimore, with really not a whole lot of talent, perceived talent, then what happens when they start plugging those pieces in? They start putting those players in place, and they start, getting that number one, solid number two. They seem set at running back. They got, I think, a quarterback. People are still kind of wondering about Goff or whether or not he's the real deal or whether he can move them along. But defensively, plug in some players. It isn't the greatest defense, but now if you solidify the line, if Barnes works out, if you get a couple of these other ones that can develop in talent, and then you get some secondary and somebody that can play man, okay, now we're cooking.
Right.
We're cooking a little bit.
Seeing that in 95, you guys started 0-3, won your last 6 and made the playoffs. You don't think that's possible this year?
No.
No. I don't know why you keep
I just had to see.
No. Listen, we can have the optimism, but no, it's not gonna happen.
That on Monday, bro. No.
I mean,
that's a whole different
I had to try it.
And as my homies like to say, I put that on neighborhood. That's not gonna happen.
So when do you think we'll be hitting the playoffs though? Like realistically, I think like next season or the season after.
I agree. I really, it depends on what happens in the off season. It depends on what happens in free agency. A lot of people are gonna say, hey, if they draft this, no, I don't get caught into draft picks, man. I was a high draft pick, but if you had saw me then and saw me between that and my first and second year, you thought my first year was a bust, which it was. And then it's hard to evaluate. Look at DeAndre Swift, right? He came in, he did some things well, had some flashes, got hurt. So you have to wait and kind of write off those first year. If you get a guy that breaks out, great. But free agency, and what I like about this, the philosophy of this team seems to be not the free agents who are 9-10 year veterans. They're looking to find young leaders. They're looking to find young players who can be developed, or young players who don't quite fit into other teams or the cap, but they have that ability to have that breakout. And if they can find those gems and they can find those talented players like that, the Lions are going to be tough, and that's how you build team and legacy over a period of time. It's not just saying, hey, I got to fill some gaps now with some veteran players. I think that's played out. I think that's old. We've seen how that runs its course. But if you can develop that young talent that builds leadership, that builds togetherness, and then you have the ability to keep them because you bought them at the right price. And I hate to say it like that, but you got them at the right price. You got them at the right time. You develop them, and now they have a loyalty and a commitment to the team, not to the money, but to their teammates in trying to build something special.
I like that. I like that.
He hit that. That was good.
To the team, not the money.
Oh, that's it. That's it.
Okay.
Because they're getting paid, right? Everybody's getting paid more than I was. I mean, right now, if I came in and you took my best salary, they'd be like, man, that dude he's cheap. I mean, I'd be making the kickers. I'd be like, man, I wish I could make the kicker salary. Come on. I'm like, man, who's the guy that's taping my ankles and putting my spat on? I want to make his salary. And this is the one thing I will say. That's in all seriousness. Like with Coach Campbell, you bring someone who's played and coached with certain coaches. They understand certain philosophies and systems, but they're not being claimed from a tree. And they're not saying, hey, this person's part of this. After a while, you get tired of hearing it. I'm like, if anything, that would be like me saying, oh, he's the next this. What I enjoyed about even like a guy like Calvin Johnson's Calvin Johnson, and it's funny because I'm like the guy, I'm Megatron before Megatron, but no, I'm Optimus Prime. So let's dig it and that kind of deal. But you know what? When you can break out of that shadow, because attributes are different, man. And Dan Campbell was thinking at a whole different way, a whole different level, that I like the fact that he's doing it all as one. You see the respect of the players and all those things. With Patricia, it's not that I even have a problem with him because I didn't know him like that, but it seemed like when you come in early and you lose your team, there's something brewing on the inside. Because how do you lose a team with talented players that seemingly know how to play the game and just want to have some voice? if you're silencing that voice, or if you're pushing that to the side, or if you got players that don't want to listen to authority, then you got disruption, and you got some dysfunction. But we haven't seen that. This is an 0-3 team, and you tell me how much bickering have you heard?
None.
Right. That in itself should speak volumes for Lion fans, for those that are following this team. The fact that you don't hear that dissension, and you don't hear a team that's falling apart, says a lot about leadership. And so when I talk about the optimism that I have for this team, it's coming from a place of looking at those other things that bring these other tangible qualities that let you know whether or not you're on the right path. And sometimes it's not always in the statistics. It's not always in wins and losses.
Mm-hmm. That's why I think this week is just so important, man, because it's like we had the tough loss. Can his players bounce back through this tough loss? Because we've had I feel like every year we have a loss like this. And it's just like, okay, well, I look at it like I'm going to learn a lot from Dan Campbell this week. If his players go out there and they respond to it, like that's a big deal on the road to beat a division team.
Right.
No, it will be. And that's going to do a lot to boost the confidence. And right now they continue to develop players, and these players continue to believe in who they are. Doesn't mean they're going to be world beaters, no, but it means that they're on the right trajectory, and they're on the right path to try to be better than what many of us thought they would be at this point. And yeah, does their record reflect what probably most people thought? Yeah, but I think when you go back and you really look at the film and you look at this team, there's some discipline things you can clean up. There's some penalty things you can clean up. And then from an aggressive standpoint, that comes with time from the offensive side. So I say have a little patience there. And I don't want to sound like I'm an advocate for everything that's happening, because you got to still win. This is the NFL. There's no consolation prizes for saying, hey, this team is really good, but they lost every game. No, if they lose every game, it's a terrible football team.
Right.
But I think it gives you something to have a way to lay your hat on, saying, you know what, there's hope, and there's potential for this team to do some really special things.